everyone, welcome back to Novel Nomad and welcome to another TBR. Hopefully this one's going to stick this time, and this is going to be my Aussie April TBR. So once again, Jacqueline and Doris are hosting Aussie April, but like last year, since it is a bit of a stressful time for everyone, with COVID still very much prevalent within our society, it is a very relaxed Aussie April. So there's no challenges, there's no prompts, there's no restrictions. It's just try and read Australian fiction, and oh no, Australian works at all. Anything by an Australian author is the goal. So what I'm going to do is go through my TBR. I've only selected a few because I will be reading a fairly hefty classic, buddy reading that with a few lovely people in April. So I didn't want to weigh myself down too much and then get like burdened by the expectation of finishing these books within that time frame. So first off, I am going to be reading Where the Fruit Falls by Karen Wilde. Karen Wilde is a local Indigenous author who actually was at Adelaide Writers Week, but I didn't get to go to her sessions just because it was when I was working. So it was very, very upsetting. But this is a multi-generational story, and apparently it is amazing, the narrative, how it's written. The main focus, even though it is a multi-generational story, it focused mainly on the 60s and 70s, where there was a big upswing in Indigenous rights within Australia, and kind of looking at the social changes that were going on at the time. Next on my list is going to be Finnikin of the Rock by Melina Marchetta, and yes, I have already read this one before, but I have read it quite a while ago, and I'm reading this in hopes that I'll be able to read the rest of the series, which is, hang on, I have it here. So hopefully I can get to read Finnikin the Rock by Melina Marchetta. It's a YA novel, YA fantasy, and then I'll get to Froy of the Exiles and Quintara of Charon. But these have been highly recommended. I love Finnikin, and I just picked up the other two straight away. But it was just one of those things where I left it too late, and now I just need to reread it again. So I want to reread Finnikin so I can go straight into the series and just have a wonderful time, like reconnecting with this series, and also with Melina Marchetta's writing, because she is like a classic staple of Australian YA. So if you haven't read one of hers yet, I highly recommend. Okay, so delving into a little bit of non-fiction now, I definitely want to pick up Emotional Female by Yumiko Kadota. This is about a brilliant young woman who basically, you know, she follows her dreams, and also her parents' dreams of her being a medical student and going into surgery, and she has to navigate the world that is the medical profession, which is a heavily male-dominated profession, and you know, being a woman of colour, and well, just a woman in that situation, but also a woman of colour, and just the stress and the strain and the pressure it put on her before she even quit. So from the sounds of it, she really makes you face the facts of what strains and pressures are put on people in the medical profession, or studying to be in the medical profession, and even those strains are how they're exacerbated when they're placed on women as well. So this one has got a lot of hype recently, and I definitely want to read this one in April, hopefully, if I can. Lastly, something else just to delve into, have it on my bedside table just in case, and that is a collection of poetry. This is by a Western Australian poet called Caitlin Melling, and it's called Fishwork, and it's basically poetry revolving around the Great Barrier Reef, because unfortunately, like with many other things that are being affected by climate change, the Great Barrier Reef is degrading at a very alarming rate. And the beautiful things like you see in, like, you know, Finding Nemo was really something that opened up the Great Barrier Reef to a wider audience, but it's just something that's so naturally beautiful and stunning, and it is just slowly bleaching, eroding away, and many of the life that, you know, depends on the reef itself is just in huge danger. So I really would love to, you know, experience her poetry and see where she takes you into this very tumultuous landscape. Alright, so whilst I said I wasn't straining myself to do all of these reads in April, I still wanted to get a large chunk of them done if I can. So let me know what you'll be reading or what you plan to read for Aussie April. But don't worry, if you have no idea, I will be doing a recommendations video. So keep an eye out for that. So have a lovely day. I'll see you next time. Bye.